kind of a rhyme or reason for the things that are happening today? Keep in mind, too, that what your government pays for, it gets. If you are paid to do something for the government, they will extract from you exactly what they have paid for.
You know, one of the little-known secrets of Washington is that policy isn't really generated very much within the policy apparatus. A great number of the ideas come from outside the government, from various think tanks.
You know, we have had the petrol crisis, we have had the climate crisis, we have had the terrorist continuing crisis, and on it goes. Well, President Roosevelt said, if it happens, it is because it was planned that way. So when you see all these crises taking place, don't be so dumbed down that you're thinking you're on a sort of magical mystery tour, and it's a sort of a helter-skelter ride, and everything is happening time and chance. You don't really know why it's happening, and it's certainly far too complicated for you to have any idea why it's taking place.
In our world has some sort of a rational plan behind it, because we understand now that both the Republican and the Democratic Party in our country are basically run by the same people. The same money finances both sides. We now know, of course, through the work of many historians who have spent their life working on research to show us that both sides of world conflicts have always been financed by the same people. And as I've said before, there seems to be a method to the madness going on in the world. We know, of course, that we cannot depend on our leaders. Our leaders are misleaders. There is a science that they're following. They have their own agenda, and it doesn't include you.
Joseph Kennedy, and he should know, said that 50 men have run America, and that's a high figure. Benjamin Disraeli, the first Jewish Prime Minister of England, who spent his life uncovering the network of subversive organizations, said the world is run by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And your own Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter, he said that the real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. Senator Inouye says that there exists a shadowy government with its own air force, its own navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideals of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. Hell, they created the law. You think they're bound by it? Think again. You're bound by it. They'll kick your door in. But you can't.
Healy went on to become a Labour Chancellor, was one of the 4 founding members of the Bilderberg Group. This is what he said: world events do not occur by accident. They are made to happen, whether it is to do with national issues or commerce, and most of them are staged and managed by those who hold the purse strings.
I think Paulson has effectively hijacked the U.S. financial system. He's no different than the 9/11 hijackers as far as I'm concerned. He's a financial terrorist, and he's taken the U.S. banking system to the edge of the abyss, all for the benefit of the shareholders and his cronies at Goldman and JP Morgan. The U.S. taxpayer, the U.S. citizen, unfortunately, is going to get the short end of the stick. Circular motion of this money laundering scheme, multinational Ponzi scheme going, but now it's a controlled demolition. It's not unlike 9/11, which was a controlled demolition. This is a controlled demolition of the U.S. banking system.
At least you're getting back to the point where you can start to look at fundamentals, and that's good news. What happened?
I think you're in a liquidation phase. I think Kirsten had it exactly right. I think there's a bunch of wrong-footed moves by Hank Paulson and the Illuminati of the country, if you will, and I think we're paying for it right now.
These people have, if you like, their body computers. They do not have empathy. They do not have the ability to empathize with the consequences for others of their actions. This is why they can slaughter vast numbers of people. And to us, we have a fail-safe mechanism called empathy with the consequences for others of our actions.
We have a conscience.
And these people do not. And this is why I've been saying all these years, don't judge what these people would do by what you would do, because it's not the same process of perception that you have. And so you have a situation where like 3,000 people on 9/11, well, and so what? You know, whereas everyone else is horrified, to them it's nothing. And this means that all bets are off. There are no limits. There are no emotional, if you like, or empathetic limits that they have. And as a result, they are operating to an agenda with a motivation and with an attitude that the rest of the population couldn't really comprehend.
Investigate themselves, those people, they would be irrelevant. It would be like the Kennedy thing, it would be like everything. The people who are in charge do what they want, and they will always do what they want. The power does what it wants.
When you start to realize where all this coordination is coming from and the network that's doing it, you start to then see why, for instance, the same legislation is being passed in New Zealand, that is being passed in Germany, that's being passed in the United States, that's being passed in Britain. Some of it almost word for word. It's because there is this central coordinating force which has this global agenda. Even I've been surprised at the detail in which this conspiracy goes.
1929 was a stock market bubble which popped. We were going into a recession, and then the politicians around the world started making horrendous mistakes, which turned it into a depression. It would have been just a normal recession otherwise, but the American politicians and then the European politicians, everybody got in the act, and that seems to be happening this time too, Mr. Stevenson. They're making a lot of mistakes.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're expecting some of the same. Are you planning for a worst-case scenario?
As I've said before, there seems to be a method to the madness going on in the world. We know, of course, that we cannot depend on our leaders. Our leaders are misleaders. There is a science that they're following. They have their own agenda, and it doesn't include